What's the most morally disgusting thing you've seen someone do? Car accident on the highway. A family of 4, including 2 children, were trapped inside. Some of us were trying to pull them out. They were bleeding all over. This despicable middle-aged guy stops his bike, come near us, and we think he is trying to help. He puts his hand inside the car, like trying to pull them out, grabs a bag lying inside, pull it out, and bolts on his bike before we could even realize what just happened. Thankfully, we could save all of them and take them to the hospital. Still, no idea about that guy. This happened more than a decade ago, and I will still punch that guy on his face if I ever see him again. Next story. Use the presidency of the United States to exorbitantly enrich himself, his family, and friends while simultaneously driving everyday Americans deep into poverty, trampling the rights of citizens while pursuing racist immigration policies, assisting in and calling for genocides, beginning an insanely dangerous war for no good reason while flagrantly ignoring Geneva Convention rules, all while somehow keeping himself and his cronies out of prison despite mountains of evidence of horrendous abuse of girls. Next story. A married couple set their house ablaze for insurance money, purposely kept their 2 dogs inside because it would look suspicious if the dogs ran off. They told us with exactly 0 remorse. Next story. I'm an ICU nurse and had a non-English speaking patient who was dying, and his family also didn't speak English. The doctor refused to use an interpreter to communicate that, let alone anything else, to them, which I found quite reprehensible and reported. Next story. I watched 77 million people show their support for a felon, pedo, and thief. He clearly stated it would be an administration of revenge and retribution, and that he would be a dictator on day 1. And people still said, yeah, that's our guy. Next story. 2 women that were best friends since childhood. One woman got married and had 2 kids. The other woman was secretly conspiring against her in many ways, like sabotaging her on getting a job, hiding mail, anonymously posting crap on social media about her, and so on. She slept with her husband, and one day, she told her straight to her face about it, took her husband away, talked to lawyers, and managed to take her kids away because she found out the woman had cancer and wouldn't be able to take care of their kids, and her parents were no longer alive. The woman that got cheated on, her cancer became terminal, died lonely. Her best friend took her husband and her kids. In the end, before dying, the woman that had cancer forgave her best friend and said she didn't understand where the hate was coming from. After her death, her best friend bragged how it was so easy to manipulate her and that no one could do crap about it. If there is a word to describe the most disgusting person to exist, it would be that crazy woman. Next story. I work at an airport. A passage came through with her dog, but the dog did not have the right documents to travel. She then decided to leave her dog somewhere at the airport and hop on the flight by herself. I wasn't the one who found the dog, but one of my colleagues did. He said that if someone ever doubted that dogs had emotions, they should have seen that dog. He had a face of heartbreak, was how my colleague described it. Next story. I used to work in retail in a rough area. Had a guy come in and take all of the charity boxes from the checkout and put them in his bag. As I confronted him at the door, he just held up a dirty needle between his fingers and walked out. Next story. Finding out my husband had a 4-year affair with my best friend of 10 years. My other best friend helping me through it, only to find out she was sleeping with him for a year. We were all married, and they are all trash. Next story. When I was a homeless addict, there were a few girls on the streets who I would describe as not all there. Basically, all you had to say was, I'll give you some free substances, come get in my van. Off they would go, and you'd see them a week later with a black eye or something, until some other predator came along like, oh honey, I'll take care of you, just come to my hotel room. People would try to get them actual help or tell the police, but if the police bothered at all, the girls wouldn't be able to string 2 coherent sentences together, so they'd be like, we can't get any useful information out of her, and she won't identify anyone or agree to press charges. Acting like it was a conscious choice these women were capable of making. You could let them know the dude is literally waiting and watching across the street for the cops to leave so he can coax her off again. Nothing. The saddest part is when they would go to jail, get put in a facility for a few weeks, get sober and put on medication, and pop up again, half normal, life in their eyes, etc. but within a few weeks, somebody would have them off their meds, back on substances, and when they weren't being taken advantage of, they'd be running the streets barefoot, screaming at people who weren't there, etc. Damn, every single one of those predatory pieces of crap. Next story. My former roommate's sister. She married a man who had been in a debilitating car accident that left him paralyzed from neck down, specifically so that he would legally adopt her daughter and she could get a trust for the kid from the money he was paid out due to the accident. She cheated on him the entire time they were married, then accused him of abuse, and even coached the kid to tell this story to police. While they were together, she used his money to gamble, buy substances, and get a 2-story home with no elevator. He would sit at the bottom of the stairs in his wheelchair, calling up for her to help him, and she'd just be playing online poker and ignore him. Next story. The police officers refusing to take responsibility for their inaction during the Uvalde school shooting. They still had the gall to blame the parents and media, instead of addressing the fact they all failed to do their jobs. Next story. People voting for Donald Trump twice to a high-level role that controls their livelihood. People who apply for ICE and then say, "Here to do my job," and go home, all while being the same skin color of the people they arrest and throw to the ground. The women who married Trump and Vance that are illegals themselves, per Trump's rules, but stay married to these men. Erica Kirk. She just sucks in every way. I could go on forever. Next story. I haven't read some of these answers, but that woman recently who had a bunch of people work on her house, and then she called ICE on them as they got close to finishing, while still owing them $10,000, was pretty disgusting. Next story. As a teen, I found a hole drilled into the wall of the bathroom from my stepbrother's room. I would fill it with toilet paper, but it would always be cleared the next time I went in there. I told my mom about it, and she said, "There's no hole in the wall. Stop being crazy." She refused to even check. She just didn't believe me. Next story. I used to be friends with this kid, now a guy as he's not moved, who lives behind my parents. He's a year older than me. We went to the same comprehensive school, etc. He started sending me creepy messages on Facebook, then made fake accounts of girls and added me to do the same. He was so thick that it was blatantly obvious it was him. He was pretty slow, so I assumed that he was very poorly exploring his sexuality, and as I knew him, didn't see him as a threat. I was just about to head out the door to a restaurant job I had, and I opened the door to a detective. She told me who she was looking for, me, and asked to come in. This guy had been contacting various other people asking for similar things, pictures, etc. He'd started targeting people younger than me and subsequently worked his way down the ages. The police wanted me to corroborate what they'd found on his laptop. That's how they knew I was also a victim of this guy. He got 2.5 years for his crimes back in 2014. He's hit local Facebook groups again, as he's now fleecing his elderly grandmother of her life savings. He's conned her out of £12,000, and due to her dementia, he's managed to get power of attorney, or whatever it is, to make decisions on her behalf. I read about it in a Facebook group, and the post named him outright. His grandmother supported him through everything, when most people would have kicked him to the curb. Not my place to intervene, but I remember his grandmother from when I was a kid. She was a lovely lady who always tried her best for him and did everything she could to give him a normal upbringing. She was very good to me when I was friends with him. I could go there any night of the week and there would be a place at the table for me. He had a troubled home life because of his bat crap crazy mother, but that does not excuse any of his disgusting actions. He's an absolute waste of skin and air. It really infuriates me that he's taking advantage of her. Next story. My friend's family that hit their dog when they had to move to another country, where they then got another dog of the same breed and gave it the same name. They did it more than once. It really messed up my friend. Also, my stepfather abused my girlfriend, and my mother telling me not to be so jealous. Then I found out he'd done it to my previous girlfriend too. Next story. There was an unconscious man on the sidewalk I was administering Narcan to. A neighbor who does not like me stepped over the man's legs and made a sarcastic comment about the company I keep. The man ended up okay that night. Last I heard, he was going into a temporary apartment setup after waiting for years on a list. I didn't see him much after that because he was in a different neighborhood, but a friend of his told me he got a job at an animal shelter soon after the apartment. He really loved the cat he took care of when sleeping on the streets, so it sounds like a perfect fit. He was, for the record, great company, and someone I'm proud to call a friend. Next story. While waiting in line at the state fair to ride the Ferris wheel, there was a boy, maybe 5 years old, pick up a chewed-up piece of gum that had clearly been on the ground a while. It was almost black from people stepping on it. That boy put it in his mouth and started eating it. His parents watched the whole thing and started laughing like it was a joke. I can't imagine being a parent that could care that little about their kid. Next story. Fun part of being visibly disabled. You get front row seats to some of the worst of humanity. Recent example. I've had to start using forearm crutches as my conditions worsened, and a bar friend started mocking me first time she saw me with them, making jokes about how I'm just desperate for attention, making ape-like, hunched, exaggerated imitations of how I walk with them, then kicked them out from under me because it's not like you even need them. She genuinely seemed to think it was all hilarious and in good fun, regretting I didn't try to direct my fall and knock her down the stairs. We were maybe 5 feet away from. Did make it very clear that I'd make sure she'd be joining me on crutches if she so much as came within 10 feet of me again at least. One of the worst recent incidents, but far from the only one of this caliber. Next story. My neighbor left his dog outside, in the summer, while she was dying of uterine cancer. I would hear her crying and go over and give her water and try to comfort her. He was mad at the vet and blamed the vet for her dying. We had the same vet. Vet told him she had cancer and a bad infection. Told him they needed to combat the infection before they could operate and remove her uterus. He didn't like the vet's answer, so he let her suffer. I hated him after that. Next story. Saw a guy in an airport with a kid. The kid threw up. The guy wheeled his suitcase over the sick to hide it. Then when the line moved, he just walked away and left it. Next story. I once saw a 79-year-old man threaten on his social media page that a civilization will die tonight, and that he doesn't want it to happen, but it probably will, or something. Next story. My niece lost her dad and sister within 4 months of each other. Dad's 401k inadvertently still had his ex-fiancée, it was plus 5 years since they broke up, listed as a beneficiary. Asked the ex-fiancé to transfer the funds to my niece. Nope, took and cashed the check. Niece's mom did the same thing. Her sister was listed on the 401k, and since her mom was the next of kin, she got the money. My brother and his ex-wife were divorced for over 20 years. Pure greed. Next story. Was working at a shop for a while. During Christmas one year, one of my coworkers was talking about the gifts they'd bought for their kids. iPads, iPhones, bunch of expensive crap. Directly after talking about the gifts, she squeezed in the fact that she was very smart and signed herself up for a low-income gift basket program so her kids could get more crap. They were very much middle class, as her husband owned his own business. A week or so later, she made a comment to me about becoming a foster mom, because the money is just so good. I disliked her for plenty more reasons than that, but was she something else? Next story. In 2000, at the World Water Forum, the spokesperson of Nestle America told the council that water is not a human right, just a human need, and therefore, it's the right of the license owner to extract and hold it back to sell with profit in a liberal market, no matter the collateral. With a straight face. I remember someone asked if the spokesperson thinks that company rights are above human needs, and he answered, needs are still above monetary gains until a institution rules otherwise. To this day, I have never met a more disgusting company. As for persons, Netanyahu easily, when he told the world that they are dealing with animals, not humans. Next story. My ex ignoring her mother with cancer the last 2 years of her life and not going to her funeral. I was the last visitor she had before she died. One of the rare times she went around to visit, and said she would paint her fence and won't even charge that much. Next story. I once went out with my old roommate. We went to a bar and took the metro home. There was a clearly homeless man sleeping on the seats. Next to him was like 7 to 8 euros in coins. Either he dropped them from his pocket or someone put it there for him. She took all the coins claiming she was a poor student. It made me sick. Next story. My dad lived next to a barbecue restaurant. Parents were long divorced. I had to be there on the weekends. The restaurant had a blues rock band pretty much every evening, and the music would be at like a moderate volume in his apartment. It drove him crazy. One morning, he decided to pick up the poop while walking his dogs, and then smeared it all over the door handle, tables, everywhere that he could, before the restaurant opened. He came home and bragged about it. Another time, he was parked illegally, and an elderly traffic cop gave him a ticket. He bragged to my stepmom and I about how he chose to call her a dried-up old to her face after she gave him the ticket. Next story. I knew a girl who bragged about getting free housing and disability welfare because she accused a coworker of assault. He went to prison and lost his job. She got a big payout and started snorting her money away. Cut to a few years later. She went to rehab, telling people it was due to her traumatic experience. There, she again accused somebody of assault because she got caught fornicating and they had a 0% tolerance for intercourse. It would have led to her getting kicked out. She would tell people all these fake sob stories for attention and pity, then turn around and laugh about how stupid everybody is for believing her. She's ruined so many people's lives and does not care. Next story. Knew a guy in college who roughed and abused a girl because she was worth more points. Me friends kept this from me, fearing how I'd retaliate. Next story. I knew someone who worked night shift and would drive in, clock in, then leave the job entirely. He'd spend the entire shift with his nasty mistress, and then come back at the end of the shift to clock out like he had been there the whole time. On top of that, he treated me badly at work, and I couldn't stand him. I also knew he was sleeping with the male, married owner of the company, and together they made my work environment miserable. Eventually, they called a meeting to confront me about my job performance. During that meeting, I told them what he had been doing, leaving during shifts, but they didn't believe me. I then told them he was selling fentanyl patches to other employees, and that it was affecting the workplace because people were passing out while machines were still running. They dismissed that too. They defended him, saying he'd been there for 5 years and had never failed a substances test. I told them that didn't mean anything, that he used detox drinks and even bought clean urine to pass tests. I suggested that if they really wanted to know the truth, they should test everyone the Monday after payday. They finally did. And that Monday, the results came back. Multiple people failed, and they were all fired. Next story. Trump withholding HIV aid to Zambia, one of the most HIV-affected countries in the world, all because their government restricted access to their mines. Next story. Got a man fired from a decade-long career and completely derailed his life with a false SA accusation because she didn't want to admit to her fiancé that she was a willing participant in their affair. Next story. I worked as a manager reporter. One day, I found a man watching adult film with his grandkids and immediately reported it to my boss. She told me to look the other way. I reported it anyway. It's a felony not to. Plus, the children! I later learned they attended the same Mormon church and that the church was aware and handling it. I was told I needed to apologize to my boss for infringing on her religious rights. I was appalled to find out how many people were totally unconcerned about these children. I refused to apologize. They then made my job so miserable, I quit shortly after. This was a place that a lot of children visit. I'm still reeling, over a decade later, about the fact that she and upper management outright admitted they knew he was a pedo. I thought I was hallucinating the whole experience. Like, they literally told me to my face they knew what he was doing. My morale plummeted. How could I work for people I thought were the scum of the earth? And furthermore, seemed totally ignorant of their legal obligations. Next story. Leaving spouses or girlfriend when they get a terminal illness. Damn, abandoning someone at their end of life when suffering takes a special kind of asshole. Next story. Growing up in the church and hearing grown-ass adults tell children they're going to go to hell for not believing in something very specific with absolutely no evidence. Next story. I am a CPA, and early in my career, a partner asked me to pad hours so we could bill more for a distressed client that was facing bankruptcy in the next few months. I think this kind of thing is common in the profession, but it really turned my stomach, and I quit a month later. Next story. After much pressure, I finally shared that I was sawed to a manipulative and abusive ex. When I finally had the courage to end it, he went directly to my abuser's house and called me, telling me that he was about to tell my entire family what I had told him. Then his mother emailed me telling me how awful it is to lie about things like that. I was 22. I didn't tell another soul. Next story. Second-hand story, but my friend Phil, the hat, because he wore a hat and no other reason, served 4 years inside for aggravated assault because he saw a man kicking a dog to death when it was tied to a lamppost. My disgust for the man beating the dog is beyond comprehension. My respect for Phil is also beyond comprehension. He kicked that man into a disabled future and smiled when he was arrested. For the Phils out there, you're doing the good work. Next story. Validation is the process of confirming that the sterilization of a product was performed correctly and that the result of sterilization was achieved. Owner, founder of the company, sent out units that were unvalidated. Like 100,000 units, they were kits for pediatrics, specifically for newborns with complications. In the end, it turned out that the kits were in fact sterilized, but he didn't know that. He eventually was forced out of his own pissant company, but he was a real piece of crap in a lot of ways. Used to threaten employees / publicly humiliate them in full team meetings. He avoided me for reasons not to be put on the internet, until one day he tried it with me. I waited for him to end, before telling him if he ever spoke to me that way again, regardless of who was in the room, that he would spend the rest of his life eating out of a tube. These two things happened within a couple days of each other, and it made me go from I am looking for a new job to I am out of here. Next story. Whatever Trump did or said today, tomorrow I will say the same thing. In my wildest nightmares, I could not create a more disgusting monster than him, and yet here we are. Next story. Kyle Sanderland, Australian radio host and gigantic piece of shit, interviewing a kid who had been abused and says the words, "Well, it's only abuse, right?" and somehow didn't lose his job immediately. Next story. Trans sadly took her own life. Bright, athletic, ran track and played basketball, was frequently bullied and harassed by one of her teammates. During her memorial service, said teammate and her family started playing Stone Cold Dead in the Market by Ella Fitzgerald on a Bluetooth speaker, while her younger brother was giving a eulogy. Next story. There are a lot of things people would consider morally disgusting, but usually it comes down to people intentionally hurting others for personal gain or not caring about the harm they cause. That could be things like scamming vulnerable people, abusing trust, or doing something harmful and then acting like it doesn't matter. What stands out most is when someone knows they're hurting others and still chooses to do it anyway. Next story. My new ex, ladies and gentlemen. September 22nd, 2025. Him to me between 9 p.m. to 9:50 p.m. I'm on my way to see my daughter for her birthday. I can't wait for you to be proud of me. I love everything about you. You make me want to be better. I love you. I have to go. My phone is at 2%. I'll TTYL when I'm done and relaxed. Him to side chick at the same exact time. Insert extremely vulgar invitation to sexy getaway. Him to me when I found the texts months later. Immediately before I found out, he gave me an STD. What did you expect? Him ever since then. I did nothing wrong because you stopped wanting to have sex with me a long time ago. Next story. I used to work in the ICU, and one family stands out in my mind. The elderly patient was dying, and the family had agreed to slow life support measures, and we were doing a compassionate extubating, and I was pushing morphine. They didn't even wait until she was fully dead and gone to scream and argue over each other on who was getting her jewelry. Still on her goddamn hands, I might add, as well as other assets. Next story. I don't know about anyone else, but I can tell you mine. I lost my childhood dog, and while it should be obvious, I'll say it anyway. She had brain cancer, and the vet wants $2,500 to put her down comfortably. Even if we did have the money, we wouldn't have paid it. We agreed as a family that was just too much money. She was sick. Now she isn't. Next story. A female roommate brought her new boyfriend to live with us in our place. I asked her one day, "So, is this the one?" She said, "Damn no, I wouldn't date him." I asked, "Then WTF is he living here for?" She said, "Because I can use him, sleep with whoever I want, and he won't do anything about it." I said, "So what, just a simp to you?" And she smiles and says, "Yep." And I said, "Wow, what a fun relationship." The fact that he watches her kid, works, cleans, cooks, and does everything for her while she sits on her ass and treats him like crap is degrading and appalling to me. She is so proud of herself, too, that she has the power to just use some dude for her pleasure, while she tanks alcohol and sits on her phone. Next story. Had to watch over a girl for several hours at a water park where I was working because mom disappeared to the parking lot to go do substances. We think she was on opioids from how she moved and acted. Even after returning, paid no attention to her daughter and told her to go play by herself. This wasn't the first time she had done this. We remembered her from earlier in the season. As an employee, we weren't supposed to say anything, but that didn't stop us from scolding her older sister for not staying with her, and telling the mother we were considering asking her to leave and calling the police. One of the managers gave the police her license plate number, and then the owner of the company told us we can't do anything about it, and that's just the way it is, just ignore it. Absolutely disgusted me that all of those people could be so casual about that. I could have left with the daughter and been on a plane by the time the mother returned. She was gone that long. That breaks my heart. She was such a sweet kid. I wish her the best. Next story. A CPS caseworker that uses his job to stalk and assault women and girls. He's still doing it and getting away with it due to qualified immunity. Any woman that even tries to report him is immediately labeled an abuser because of the general belief that anyone that criticizes CPS or social workers must be a pedo. Next story. I knew a guy who had 3 women in our town pregnant at the same time. They were all named Tiffany, so he didn't slip up and say the wrong name. Disgusting. Next story. I'm 37, and the worst person I've ever met is still a guy I knew in high school. Aside from being accused multiple times of assault and getting girls he dated addicted to substances, I did witness him attack his own mother and throw her down a flight of stairs. Next story. Knowingly, falsely, accuse somebody of embezzlement to sway public opinion against her. Yes, could have been grounds for a libel suit, but he's crafty. He only said it once, then let rumor do the rest. Next story. A recent one I read about was this Twitch streamer who was super big in one game. They were together years, and she developed cancer. He was a super professional esports gamer at the time and made so much. He paused his entire career to focus on her, helped her build up an audience, taught her to stream, looked after her and her medical bills. Married, I believe. Then, when she got better, had an audience she left him. To soul search, supposedly. Next story. Didn't see it, but my grandparents stole my sister's college money. She trusted them and was slipping cash under the table to them every week so they could put it away in her college fund. It was like $7,000 they stole. When it came time to use it, they played dumb and said, "What money?" They go to church every Sunday. There was nothing she could legally do, unfortunately. No one in the family talks to them now. Next story. I was in rehab with a guy who admitted that he tried to end his life by ramming his car into another car that was pulled over to the side, on a bridge. Luckily, the other guy survived, albeit with major injuries. Unluckily, this asshole survived too. He did go to prison though. Next story. My father had his own business, and he rented a commercial building from a man for over 25 years. When my dad got cancer and got very sick, we gave notice and closed the business down. A week after closing, our doorbell at home rang, and a man said he had flowers for my father. My father was in his literal deathbed and couldn't come to the door. The flower man insisted on coming inside personally to deliver the flowers. Turned out, he was a process server sent by the old landlord. After a 25-year relationship, the landlord tried to sue my father for not leaving the property in broom-swept condition. All knew very well my dad was in his deathbed. Biggest POS I have ever had to deal with. Next story. I knew a dude who had nowhere to go, so an older gay guy was letting him crash on his sofa. But the homeless dude was going all over town within our community and doing nothing but talking down the man who was graciously providing him a place to sleep. He talked about how stupid he was and made fun of his habits, etc. I was so revulsed by that. Who makes fun of and spits on the name of someone helping you out? That's how I discovered a core value I didn't even realize I had. If you're going to accept charity from someone, the least you can do is hold their name in your mouth with respect. Next story. What I'm witnessing in the US right now, political leaders exploiting and squeezing ordinary citizens while half the population cheers them on and wraps it all in the language of faith and morality. I find it genuinely troubling. Next story. In college, I worked with this spineless yes man who reported a mother of 3 to the general manager for taking food products that were about to be thrown out anyway. She lost her job over it. I made his time at work as unpleasant as possible after that. I'll add littering to his list of offenses while I'm at it. Next story. I have a friend who has been in a wheelchair his entire life. In middle school, I was talking to him when a guy I'd met a couple months earlier walked up and said to me, about my friend, "Why are you talking to that freak?" That same guy is on his 3rd marriage at 30. Next story. I knew a guy with serious anger issues. He once casually mentioned that he'd found a cheap outlet for his aggression, paying vulnerable people on the street to let him physically take out his frustrations on them. He seemed proud of it. Next story. A mother who crossed every possible boundary with her daughter, pursuing her daughter's friends, her daughter's partner, and attempting to pull her daughter into deeply inappropriate situations with strangers, including asking her to carry a child for her. I look at my own daughter and cannot fathom it. It's reprehensible on every level. I've always been too unsettled to ask if others have experienced anything like this. Next story. A family that effectively cut off contact with my brother, turned hostile when we tried to reach out, and then attempted to use the legal system against us simply for trying to get in touch with him. Next story. On a class trip to Montreal in grade 8, one of my classmates, someone I already couldn't stand, would walk up to homeless people waving large bills and snatch them away the moment they reached out. He thought it was entertaining. It wasn't. Haven't heard about him in years, but I do not think he's changed whatsoever. Next story. My colleague was the only one who went to management to defend an intern who was wrongly accused of a mistake. This colleague knew that the boss was a vindictive person, and that this would put an end to his own promotion. And so it happened. He lost his position, but he saved the young man's career. When I asked why, he simply replied, "I wouldn't be able to sleep knowing the truth." Next story. I lived in a small Irish village back in the 90s. A new Garda moved into the local Garda station. But before he introduced himself to anyone, he went to the local pub, drank with the locals. The next night, he introduced himself as the new Garda and arrested everyone for drink driving. Now bear in mind, the previous night, he did drink and drive along with everyone else. Next story. I knew someone who had a wife who he lived with through the week, and on the weekends, he lived with his girlfriend in a town a few miles away. Had 8 kids with his wife and 3 kids with his girlfriend. The wife knew and never left. Next story. For over 30 years, my FIL provided everything for his wife and gave her a really nice life. When he got sick, instead of doing the cruel thing of leaving him, she did the morally disgusting thing and continued to use him for what he provided her, all while cheating on him with multiple other men. As he was sick and dying of cancer in the hospital, she refused to visit because she was busy visiting with other men. It would have been cruel to leave him when he got sick, but it was morally disgusting and beyond awful what she did instead. Next story. I knew a guy back in college who was gay but closeted at the time. He deliberately engaged in ongoing flirtation with a girl because he knew his friend liked her and he wanted to upset him. He would get dressed up when he knew he was going to see her and everything. A couple of my friends would help him get ready, and the 3 of them would laugh about it. This guy did other things too, just because he liked to see people suffer. Next story. Queued at the self-checkout in Sainsbury's once. The bloke in front of me stood by the promo wetsuits and just started crushing the bags one by one. Properly crunching then putting them back like nothing happened. Didn't open them, didn't buy them, just destroyed them. Whole queue watched in silence. No one said a word. Next story. A girl I know was given a stolen phone as a gift. When she opened the phone, there was pictures of a stillborn baby, pictures of the people who own the phone with their baby, etc. She refused to give the phone back to the couple, knowing it was probably the only pictures they had of their child. It made me sick. Next story. I've seen a president start a pointless war that triggered a global economic disaster just to distract people from his pedo doings. Going to be hard to top this. Next story. A minifucker I know met 2 women roughly at the same time. Instead of leaving woman number 1 for woman number 2, he decided to keep both, telling each they were exclusive. Women number 2 became the actual girlfriend, and women number 1 became the side chick, without any of them knowing. Years later, with both women number 1 and number 2 out of his life, he keeps cheating on every single partner he's had, and somehow he never gets caught. I just hope he does one day, and it all implodes like that submersible. Next story. I met a dude that was married and had 2 kids, and he just cheated on his wife every time he could with whoever he could. And I've never had so little respect for someone. Next story. Coworker used to call another coworker Anne Frank behind her back. Another office mate dies tragically. He's consoling and hugging the one he has the nickname for at the wake. They began dating for a few months.